Now I think we should move into our strength and conditioning segment. All it takes is all you got. So for those of you who are in front of a computer, now's the time to go over to Angel's YouTube channel and follow along with us, the videos that we'll be taking a look at. And if you are not in front of a computer, if you're listening on your phone or in the car or whatever, just make a mental note that when you get home and get in front of a computer, just fast forward to about the 28-minute mark and follow along with us on Angel's YouTube channel. So, Angel, let's talk about the videos that you have for us today.
Okay, so I think tell everybody my background was as a strength and conditioning coach, so I'm able to use exercises as tools to change mechanics. So I do very skill specific training with my pitchers. So once I know what we have to change, or once I see them on the mound and work with them to see what has to change or be adjusted, I come up with either create an exercise or use an exercise that exists to actually teach them to embed the movement skill into their body. Pitching is a sequence of athletic skills, the ability to lift the knee and not fall all over the place, the ability to stride correctly, the ability to get over the front leg. Every part of it is attached to a skill, and it's attached to a movement of a joint. And when you're in the gym training, you're training your muscles that cross the joints. So I match the need to an exercise or a drill. So in the first video that you will see one of my pitchers doing, so there's an exercise in the gym called the good morning. And the good morning is usually done standing, and it is an exercise that actually works at the level of the hip flexor, and it's actually a low back strengthening exercise. Some hamstrings are involved. So what I did is I put my pitcher onto this I just found a place for him to sit in the gym where he would not be sitting on a chair with his legs straight, his thighs straight, but he would be sort of what I call a bar stool sit. So he's at a certain angle with his leg. And what he's doing here is working through his hip joints and working with the position of the low back and the rib cage being up, so that he's actually practicing the skill of the trunk tilting forward. And as you can see, as he's moving, he's tilting forward, and his shoulders and his are pretty much out at the level of the front of his foot. So this is kind of a movement that starts to build in the ability and the feel and the skill of getting over the front leg. This pitcher has a very long upper body. So for him to go forward over the foot when he's not going to be sitting is going to be a challenge. But the hip flexors need that conditioning. They need that strength, and he needs that self-awareness of how to do that. In the second video, I then take it to something that's very specific to pitching. So he's a right-handed pitcher, so I put him into the ball release position, and then I have him take a weight, and you can see he's not working with a heavy weight. In the first video, we just had a bar across his back. So now here he is with a light weight, and he's really developing the ability to hold on to his left leg position as he goes forward. In other words, he's going over his front leg without pulling the knee backward as he goes over. He's actually using his strength to be able to, do this movement, which is exactly like pitching. His back foot is something he's also becoming aware of how important it is in terms of stabilizing him as he's doing this, which in pitching, that's one of the most important things. So many pitchers pull their back foot off too soon, and they have no choice but to pull backward on the front knee. So this is a great exercise. And of course, while you're teaching your pitchers to do this, you are teaching them why they're doing it and how to feel the different pieces of this. So then, of course, to make it very, very skill specific, I took him outside, and this gym happened to have, as you see, a little kind of driveway there. And so now he's doing the same movement downhill, because now he's got a different thing to process through his front ankle because he's downhill. And you can see him using his back leg for stabilization. You can see he's got a lighter barbell on his shoulders. He intuitively knew to go change that weight. And so this is what we did. And then later this afternoon, in the afternoon, we went out to the mound. He's not throwing right now, but I actually took him through this sequence on the mound with his cleats so that he really could process what he has to do here. And after a few tries and making errors, the pitchers start to get, for example, whoa, if my back foot isn't solid on the ground, I can't go forward. If I'm not strong behind my front knee, I can't maintain that height of that leg. If my ankle isn't correctly positioned on my front leg, I'm not going to be able to keep that knee angle. And if my low back isn't in this position, I'm going to be using my trunk muscles in a weird way instead of the leg and the hip muscles, which is what is required. So aren't these three cool little videos here?
They're very cool. And my back is hurting just watching him go over his front leg.
I know. And he didn't do 100, even though this video keeps replaying. So, yes. So anyway, this is I call this the good morning sequence. And it's one of the exercises I use to help pitchers feel and understand what getting over the front leg does. And of course, they put the barbell down and then they go through their pitching motion and they absolutely love it. So what you want to do with mechanics during the time that they're not throwing is to work with the mechanics, because the minute the ball gets in the hand, they go into their normal patterns. So by having this be completely in a different environment, no ball, nothing, they're able to feel and learn and understand. Pitchers need to understand what they're supposed to do. And when they understand what they're supposed to do, they have a better chance of being able to do it. So, and, I'm a fanatic about getting over the front leg because it's the easiest way to add velocity. You don't have to jump through hoops and buy all these things to try to get velocity. You shouldn't even be looking at those things unless you're doing all the things in the motion that actually accentuate your ability to have top velocity. So the good morning sequence is my all it takes is all you got movement, skill-specific training for this episode.
That's awesome. There are a lot of pitchers that we've talked about on this podcast that would benefit from that exercise. And just because it's called the good morning doesn't mean you can't do it in the afternoon or the early evening.
I know it's an old-fashioned bodybuilding exercise, and it's the most incorrectly done exercise as well. But when I actually designed it for a pitcher about 2 years ago, and I had him sitting, I said, a seated good morning is actually a training exercise that we use a lot in Olympic lifting. So I said, if I take that seated good morning and raise up the seat so he's not sitting like in a chair, then I'll bring in that angle of the leg. And then wait a minute, if I have him stand up and he's in his ball release position, it just took on its own life, and pitchers love it. And it gives them that sense of how they have to work. And listen, they are working hard when they're doing this. So, coaches, I always say, before you teach something, do it yourself. You can take the pull-down bar off of a cable and use that on the shoulder of a pitcher because it's long and it weighs nothing, but they have to have something on their shoulder to actually activate everything. The position of the low back has to be like you see on the video. The back is in extension. The rib cage is lifted. That trunk position has to be there. And that, by the way, is the correct trunk position for the follow-through. So this is just trains so many parts for the pitcher. So it's one of my faves.
Yeah, that's a good one. So if we're out at the ballpark, is it okay just to use like a bat or a fungo or something in place of the barbell?
Yes. We took a broom out of the dugout when we were there because I brought something and it wasn't long enough for him. But yes, as long as the bat's long enough to where he can get his hands on it and doesn't feel all cramped up. But yes, and having their cleats on. Remember, everything changes downhill. That's why this season, all my off-season training with my guys, we are double splitting. We're in the gym in the morning, and then we're doing exercises, stride exercises, etc., on the mound, because when you do them flat, it just isn't the same. So, and it's been real effective so far. So what I'm hoping is that all these things will be adjusted. So when they throw the first ball, they are already adjusted.
Yeah, it's great stuff. I'd like to see Tyson Ross try to do this.
Yes, that would be great. He certainly could benefit from not being vertical and getting over his front leg. But you know what? You do what you feel. So,
Well, it works for him. Well, that's all we have for today.